Ladies and gentlemen, imagine building your entire life around loyalty, love, and trust, only to watch that same loyalty rise from the shadows and testify against you in open court. Picture the scene. Cameras flashing, reporters whispering urgently to each other, microphones poised to catch every word. And there sits T.I., jaw clenched, eyes glistening, hands fidgeting ever so slightly as Shekinah Joe steps forward. The woman who once laughed beside Tiny on reality TV, who once shared smiles and secrets, now faces the world armed with the truth. And with a voice both calm and piercing, she utters 6 words that freeze the room, that turn T.I.'s universe upside down. She says, with authority, "Tiny wasn't faithful, and I have proof." The words hit like a thunderclap in a silent courtroom. You could almost feel the air leaving the room as the shock rippled through the audience. Everyone froze. Friends, family, reporters, photographers, all captivated by the magnitude of what was about to unfold. The woman who had called Tiny her sister, her confidant, had just detonated a bomb so powerful it could destroy everything. But she didn't stop there. She didn't merely accuse, she proved it. Hidden audio, the kind Tiny never thought would surface, played through the courtroom speakers, a haunting, intimate recording that made every whispered conversation and clandestine glance tangible. Every note, every laugh, every faint breath captured on tape was a confession wrapped in layers of betrayal. The reactions were instantaneous. Gasps echoed like shockwaves, cameras clicked furiously, reporters sprinted to file breaking updates, and T.I. sat frozen, a man watching the empire he had helped build crumble before his eyes in surround sound. The public, already captivated by glimpses of the Harris family drama, collectively held its breath. And yet, the central question hanging over everyone's heads wasn't whether Tiny had cheated. It was why now? Why would Shekinah, a woman who had played a pivotal role in their lives, choose this exact moment to destroy the very family she once helped hold together? Was it revenge? Long, simmering anger over years of betrayal and humiliation? Or was it a pursuit of redemption, a moral duty to finally reveal the truth? The courtroom had become more than a legal arena. It was a stage for a story, where friendship had turned into fury and secrets had transformed into undeniable evidence, leaving no one untouched. The scene inside the courtroom was surreal, almost cinematic. It was packed like a sold-out concert, but there was no cheering, no applause, only the tense hum of anticipation. Every person present understood that they were witnessing history. Shekinah Joe, once a psychic confidant and on-screen friend, had now become a storm. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the microphone, her eyes burning with a mixture of fear, determination, and anger. She was ready to confront the very people who had built her spotlight, to peel back the layers of fame and loyalty, exposing every shadowed corner of their lives. The collective silence was deafening. Even seasoned reporters, trained to react instantly, were too stunned to blink. The weight of the moment was palpable. When Shekinah finally cleared her throat and said, "I was there the night it happened," the entire courtroom seemed to tilt forward, drawn to her words. There was a collective intake of breath, a wave of disbelief and curiosity that seemed almost tangible. T.I. shifted slightly in his seat, fingers tapping nervously against the table, a futile attempt to distract himself from the reality unfolding before him. His face betrayed the storm inside, a quiet, creeping panic born from realizing that someone had brought the receipts he thought were long deleted and safely buried. This was the type of moment that crystallizes reputations, that shifts the balance of public perception in an instant, and T.I. was living it, frozen, powerless, and painfully aware of every eye in the room. Shekinah's testimony unfolded slowly, deliberately, almost like a confession whispered in the darkness before dawn. She recounted that it all began with laughter, with drinks shared during a trip intended to save a marriage. According to her, Tiny had been distant for months, emotionally withdrawing long before any physical evidence surfaced. Her account painted a picture of a relationship unraveling quietly, of emotional disconnect festering beneath the surface of a carefully curated public image. And then came the twist, the revelation that would make even the most jaded courtroom attendees sit straighter. The man Tiny confided in, the person she trusted during her marriage's breakdown, was not some anonymous stranger or distant industry figure. He was a friend of T.I.'s, a business partner, someone who had been in their home, who had smiled in family photos, toasted at birthday parties, and participated in the very life that Tiny had been a part of. This was not only infidelity, it was betrayal layered over trust, intimacy, and public visibility. The courtroom fell into a stunned silence, the kind of silence that presses on your chest and refuses to dissipate. Shekinah continued, describing how she had begged Tiny to stop, warning her of the consequences, the children, the family name, the brand, the legacy. But Tiny, allegedly numb from years of humiliation and emotional detachment, responded with a chilling casualness. If he can do it and be forgiven, so can I. Those words landed like bullets, each syllable shattering the fragile illusion of control that T.I. had maintained for so long. Shekinah's voice trembled as she spoke to the judge, admitting that she had initially thought Tiny was merely venting her frustrations. But that night proved otherwise. The story spilled out in excruciating detail. A secret meeting at a recording studio, a familiar car parked discreetly outside, Tiny walking in under the cover of night, sunglasses shielding her identity, as if disguise could hide a guilty conscience. Every gesture, every sound, every nervous laugh and hushed tone was etched into Shekinah's memory. Moments when reality itself seemed to collapse. It wasn't about love anymore, Shekinah said, shaking her head as if even saying it aloud was painful. It was about getting even. T.I. sat frozen, lips pressed together so tightly they looked almost painful. For years, he had been accused of infidelity, of missteps hidden behind public narratives, of the delicate balancing act between loyalty and scandal. But in this courtroom, karma had arrived, unmistakable and merciless, walking in heels and demanding its story be told. Then came the revelation of the hidden audio. The atmosphere in the courtroom shifted, electric and tense. Shekinah explained that the recording was never meant to exist. It was an accidental capture by the studio's security system, an unintentional witness to the truth. Tiny had no idea she was being recorded, but Shekinah did. She admitted, "I heard it, and I still can't unhear it." Every ear in the courtroom strained to catch the faint echoes of the conversation. The defense team attempted to interrupt, to downplay the significance of the recording, but the judge waved them aside, signaling that the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, would be heard. The audio itself, though not graphic, was intimate. Laughter, whispered words, a confession that changed everything. Shekinah pointed out a line that caused a collective shiver in the room. "He deserves this." She clarified, quietly, that Tiny meant T.I. The impact of those words was immediate and devastating. Gasps echoed throughout the courtroom, reporters furiously typed updates, and every attendee felt the weight of history unfolding in real time. But Shekinah didn't stop at the audio. She described Tiny's emotional spiral in the aftermath. Tears, panic, paranoia, sleepless nights filled with fear that rumors would leak further, that the carefully maintained facade of their family image would crumble entirely. Tiny had called her at 3 a.m., sobbing and claiming she couldn't live with the burden of her actions. Yet she had not stopped the charade herself, threatening instead to leave before confessing fully. The courtroom tension grew thicker, even as the judge looked uncomfortable and objections flew from the defense. Shekinah persisted, each word a release, each sentence a deliberate unraveling of years of carefully guarded secrets. However, the moment the audio fills the room, reporters dash for updates, their shoes pounding against polished floors, typing as fast as they can, desperate to capture the unfolding scandal. T.I.'s eyes glisten with disbelief. For years, he built an empire with love, loyalty, and an image carefully curated for the public. But now that empire is crumbling in real time, collapsing under the weight of the truth he thought was buried forever. And amidst all the chaos, one question reverberates louder than any flashbulb. Why now? Why would Shekinah, the woman who helped construct the Harris family's public image, betray them in such a devastating public way? Is this an act of revenge, a desperate attempt to correct a moral wrong, or something else entirely? Because when sisterhood turns toxic, when loyalty becomes a weapon, and when secrets become evidence, nobody leaves unscathed. That day, the Harris family learned the cruel truth about fame. Summer seats may fade, but betrayals echo forever. In that courtroom, the air is heavy with tension. Every breath feels deliberate, every movement charged with anticipation. Even the reporters, trained to remain neutral, forget to breathe. They are witnessing history unfold, a reality TV family turned courtroom drama, a saga of loyalty, betrayal, and exposure that will define a generation of public fascination. Shekinah begins her testimony almost whispering, her voice trembling with the weight of memory. She recounts the laughter, the champagne, the desperate attempts to save a crumbling marriage, and how what was supposed to be a night of healing became a night of betrayal. The man Tiny confided in wasn't a stranger, not some fleeting fling. He was T.I.'s own friend, a trusted business partner, someone who had eaten at their table, toasted their anniversaries, smiled in family photos, someone who had been part of the very family he now betrayed. The betrayal lands like a physical blow. You can hear the collective gasp in the courtroom, almost like the air itself is recoiling. Shekinah recounts begging Tiny to stop, to consider her children, her name, her brand, but Tiny's response is cold, calculated, and chilling. If he can do it and be forgiven, so can I. Those words don't just sting, they detonate. They erase the line between love and revenge, and in that moment, it's no longer about passion or desire. It is about power, control, and getting even. T.I. sits frozen, a man whose own silence carries the weight of guilt and fear. For years, he has faced rumors about his own infidelities. But now, Karma, dressed in heels and wielding a microphone, has walked into the courtroom and taken the witness stand. And then Shekinah delivers the final blow, the hidden audio. It was never meant to exist, captured by accident by the studio's security system, a recording Tiny never knew about. But once Shekinah heard it, she could never unhear it. The voices, the laughter, the hushed confessions, and then those 3 words that echo like a curse: "He deserves this." The room reacts in collective disbelief. The weight of that statement crushes every lie ever told in that marriage, and in that instant, the public's imagination is set on fire. The moment Shekinah speaks, the world reacts. Clips spread across timelines like wildfire, hashtags multiply, memes explode, and the story metastasizes across every corner of the internet. Some hail her as a hero, someone who finally exposed the rot behind a carefully curated public image. Others call her vindictive, weaponizing intimate pain for attention. But the internet doesn't pause for debate. It consumes, amplifies, and sensationalizes. Fans gather outside the courthouse in the rain, holding umbrellas, shouting her name like a modern-day anti-hero. Tiny speeds off in her car, silent, leaving the storm of public opinion to descend entirely on T.I. He remains, shielded by legal counsel, but millions replay each moment, frame by frame, scrutinizing every expression, every pause, every subtle tremble. Social media explodes with speculation. If this was only the beginning, what else lies hidden on that tape? Shekinah drops the cruelest line last. That tape is not the whole story. 7 words that land like a slap to the face of every headline and every loyal fan, turning curiosity into obsession. Overnight, the internet becomes a jury, witness, and judge, dissecting the family's private life with unprecedented intensity. The media frenzy is unstoppable. Every outlet scrambles to verify clips, every news feed fills with speculation, and gossip channels explode with supposed insider information. One viral clip allegedly captures Tiny admitting to an affair with one of T.I.'s business partners. Another suggests T.I. begged her to stay silent. Accuracy matters less than narrative, and soon the entire city of Atlanta feels like it is living through a small apocalypse. Call-in radio shows debate morality, late-night hosts stitch tragedy into comedy, and podcasts rebrand episodes to capitalize on the story. Fame has become currency, and betrayal is its most potent, addictive form. Meanwhile, T.I.'s empire begins to crumble. Sponsors quietly remove his name from campaigns, reality show reboots are shelved indefinitely, and streaming platforms pause discussions about upcoming projects. Even former collaborators, who once called him untouchable, now comment with cold clarity. Shekinah didn't ruin them, she just turned the lights on. Outside the courthouse, fans cheer and jeer in equal measure. Social media explodes with reactions, memes, and conspiracy theories. The storm isn't coming. It's already here. Inside the courtroom, the tension is unbearable. T.I. remains frozen, his hands clasped tightly, eyes hollow. A man realizing the storm is no longer a threat, but a reality he cannot control. Tiny sits beside him, head bowed, clutching tissues like lifelines, a symbol of fractured composure. In contrast, Shekinah exudes a chilling serenity, the calm of someone who has carried a weight too long and finally set it down. "I did not come to destroy a family," she tells the judge. "I came because I was tired of being blamed for other people's secrets. Love does not pay for peace." Half the internet crowns her a crusader of truth, the other half labels her a traitor, someone who traded loyalty for relevance. In that silence, the courtroom is no longer just a legal space. It is a theater of exposure, a stage where reputations burn, and the truth, finally unrestrained, dominates every frame. By the time her testimony reached its climax, it was clear that this was no longer a simple legal proceeding. It was a cathartic purge, a reckoning not just for Tiny, not just for T.I., but for every person who had witnessed and participated in the construction of a manufactured family image. Shekinah wasn't merely testifying, she was liberating herself from the weight of hidden truths, from the toxic loyalty that had bound her to a family that thrived on appearances. Every whispered conversation, every hidden betrayal, every shadowed choice of the past was laid bare before the court, and more importantly, the world watching beyond the courthouse walls. And in that silence, punctuated only by the faint hum of the courtroom and the soft click of camera shutters, one truth became undeniable. Loyalty can be weaponized, trust can be shattered, and fame, when built on secrets, inevitably collapses from within. The Harris family, long a symbol of wealth, influence, and unity, had been exposed to the raw, unfiltered consequences of human fallibility. So now the question hangs in the air like smoke after a fire. Was Shekinah a hero for revealing the truth, or a villain for destroying what she once helped build? Did she act out of revenge, or was this a moral imperative, a pursuit of justice for the sake of honesty and integrity? Whatever the answer, one thing is certain. In the world of fame, loyalty is fragile, secrets are dangerous, and every hidden truth eventually demands its moment in the light. Stay tuned, because this story is far from over, and the world will be watching closely as every hidden layer comes to light.